Hey there friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and today I want to tell you what your rank in Marvel Rivals competitive play says about you. And this comes as many players want to blame their teammates for them not being able to climb and for being the reason they are hard stuck. And some of this is a little situational because if you are playing solo, it can be a bit more difficult than if you're playing with friends or getting boosted potentially. But by and large, these will hold true for pretty much every player in that rank. Now, if you're bronze, you're either basically just starting the game, you've never played a hero shooter before, or you might want to consider playing quick play a lot and learning characters that you're comfortable with in order to climb. This is the lowest rank in the game for a reason. You get a lot of points if you win, and so even just by playing a lot, you should be able to get out of this fairly easily. If not, then you might want to reevaluate what you're doing. Maybe you need to flex more. Maybe you need to one-trick your way into silver, whatever the case may be. It's not looking good at this particular point. Silver is not much better. I start to see players think that once they hit silver, they are starting to make headway, but with the ranking system and how many points you're able to get early on, silver is once again not all that difficult to climb out of. It just means you've been playing the game for a little bit longer. If you're stuck in silver though, you have a long way to go, not only with skill, but learning the characters and also just the understanding of how the game works, team compositions and all of that. You might be struggling and that is fair, but if you're stuck in silver, then you still have quite a ways to go. Gold is where you start to see a bit of an ego, and that's a major problem. This is where you often will find players who think they know the best case scenario in every situation. They know exactly what to do, but for some reason can't climb out of gold, and so that's where them blaming their teammates becomes even more prevalent as they really struggle to understand why they're losing and not climbing ranks. A lot of players in Season 0 were hard stuck gold, but now have progressed into being silver, or platinum, sorry. And platinum is where it gets really interesting because it's the last rank before you start to be able to ban characters, so it's really where you're going to see the most one tricks, and because of that it can be incredibly frustrating to climb out of platinum. In Season 0 it was gold, and now in Season 1 platinum seems to be where you're going to yo-yo the most. You're going to go up, you're going to go down, you're going to win a bunch of games, you're going to lose a bunch of games, and it really is kind of the hardest spot, in my opinion, for solo players especially, because you will have so many teammates who seemingly don't know how to play every role, don't want to swap off of roles, and don't want to adjust team composition even when it's not working. And once again, just like gold players, their ego tells them that everyone else is to blame and they have nothing to do with their rank. They are hard stuck there for a reason and might be for several seasons. Then we get into Diamond. This is the lower upper echelon, if you will. Now, it's not quite as high as it used to be because they added another rank as well. But ultimately, Diamond players, you're going to start to learn a little bit more nuance of the game. You start to have hero bans, but by and large, the hero bans at Diamond are going to be pretty consistent with what the meta is. You don't see any off picks or anything like that with those bans typically, and it seems to be a lot of players who are running similar team compositions because they all have kind of hit a spot where they're starting to struggle for the first time, and that's why they have to really try to follow the meta and what's working the best at that particular time. Again, this is where a lot of players will yo-yo. They might drop down to platinum quite a bit if they were one trick and now are struggling to get back up into Diamond and learn other characters, or they might climb back up into Diamond as they make that adjustment and their skill catches up as well. Now, moving on, we have some interesting ranks here that are a little bit more muddled than they used to be, starting with Grandmaster. This was one where I thought it was the real top of the, or bottom of the top previously, whereas I now would consider Celestial being the top players in the game. You don't see any top 500 players in Grandmaster really anymore, and so because of that, Grandmaster now is a lot of really good players who think they deserve to be Celestial or Eternity, but there's some things missing. Their bag is not quite full enough to make it to that next level. Maybe they don't run enough of the swapping capable heroes. For example, maybe they don't run enough support or vanguard in order to keep climbing, and they run into other duelists who are better than they are, and they can't swap and really help the team nearly as much. Most Grandmaster players will be able to play multiple different roles, but not necessarily all at the high level, and a lot of them, pure skill alone has allowed them to climb in order to gain the ranks, maybe as a primary duelist, getting a lot of kills, and then once they get to this point, that's when they start to get some pushback, as everyone at that level is equally skilled and might be more flexible or able to play a lot of different roles. Then we get to Celestial, and this is where I think players are going to be pretty much the top, but not quite the best in the game. So what I mean by that is all of these players, if they had the right teams, could probably get to Eternity or one above all. If they are playing solo, it is going to be a really difficult time, even though everyone is more flexible, but that's just because you have such a lower player base at this point that it is a bit of an issue with matchmaking and trying to essentially have the right team compositions, because every player at this level is going to be really, really good. It's just a matter of who has the best team comp, who has the players in the roles that they're best at, and that is where it can be a bit difficult. If you're a solo Celestial player, then you're absolutely nuts, but if you are in a team, then you could probably hit Eternity, just depending on if somebody on your team is not quite on that same skill level. Then we get to Eternity and one above all. I'm going to lump these together just because I feel like there is not a lot of difference between the two. A lot of times you'll see players interchange, go up and down, and sometimes it's just strictly due to how much you play and how much you play with a stacked team that allows you to climb even further. These players are pretty much comfortable in any role. You're starting to see a lot of them swap off into Smurf accounts to help out their friends rank up higher, which I don't condone. I don't think anybody should do necessarily, but it's interesting to see these players who are really the top of the game and then watch them compete in tournaments, because the best players on these leaderboards aren't necessarily going to be the best tournament players either, even though they think they should be. And watching them play is always interesting, because oftentimes this is where you'll really start to see players have their main, if they're really good with it, like the best Spider-Man Necros will get his Spider-Man banned more often than not, whereas oftentimes in other situations, as you're climbing ranks in Diamond and Grandmaster, people are banning based off of what the meta is, not necessarily banning specifically to target players who are that good and can carry at that level. Anyway, that's what your rank says about you. Let me know what rank you are in the comments down below, where you are stuck at, why it is or is not your fault, all that kind of good stuff. Like the video as always, comment, subscribe. My name is JoPa. Have a good one. I'll catch you all later.